Today on the Big 3 and 30, Duke gets the top seed in the NCAA tournament.
Duke's going to bring it every time they step onto the court.
Purdue wins the Big 10 and gets a 2 seed.
Purdue beats Michigan. What a win.
And NC State is headed to Dayton for the first 4.
The brackets are out, and NC State got hosed.
This is the Big 3 and 30 College, the 3 biggest stories on campus from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 and 30 College starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 and 30 your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The NCAA tournament field is set after Selection Sunday, and the Duke Blue Devils have the number 1 overall seed in the field of 68. Now that they know the path to a national championship, JJ Jackson looks at the games ahead on Locked On Blue Devils.
Got to talk about this win that Duke had and claiming the number 1 overall seed. Selection Sunday comes and goes every single year, Dad, and for the overwhelming majority of our lifetimes, Duke's name has always been selected. 16th time in program history, Duke's been the number 1 overall seed.
Absolutely incredible. And you know, if you had asked us a week ago if we would be sitting here this morning saying this, well, we're pretty much optimistic. We look through Duke-colored lenses a lot, but the truth is we may have been a little bit hesitant. A couple of big injuries, a lot of question marks, but one thing you can never question is whether or not Duke's going to bring it every time they step onto the court, and they certainly did just that.
They brought it, and it was really fun. Dad and I were at the ACC tournament this week. They're in Charlotte, able to cheer and support these guys on the tournament run. The injuries, like you said, to Caleb Foster and Gongbo a week ago, so much uncertainty. It wasn't until Tuesday that we actually heard the specifics of the injuries for both of those guys, and 7 was enough. Now we think Patrick Gongba will be back for the NCAA tournament, so we'll get to that in just a little bit. But thinking about just the season as a whole, to go 32-2 overall, to win the ACC regular season, to win the ACC tournament, losing 2 games by a combined 4 points, having the National Player of the Year, man, pretty good. Good year, and the tournament hasn't even started.
Wow. And you know, I was talking about a week ago, but let's go back to the beginning of the season when you had on so many incredible guests and you were talking about what might be, because we were coming off one of the best seasons in quite a while.
Yeah.
We had been cheering for Con Knipple and Cooper Flagg and that incredible team. And then they left and went to the NBA. We knew we had a good team coming in, but we weren't quite sure what would it really be when they bounced the ball the first time. And by the way, our incredibly confident coach decided, how about one of the toughest non-conference schedules maybe in the history of Duke basketball? And looking at that schedule, Joshua, as optimistic as I've always been, JJ, I was just thinking, man, I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And here we are.
Yeah, you're letting people know the legal name, and I'll let that slide for now. But yeah, no, it was pretty impressive, the schedule that Shire put together, and to go through and pick up the wins that they were able to. Tested really early in the non-conference. That Florida game in the ACC-SEC Challenge was massive, with Duke able to win on the last-second shot from Isaiah Evans and earning this top seed. Now, it's not going to be easy.
Right.
As the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, you and I were watching Selection Sunday unfold, and some of the names that we saw appear in Duke's region, pretty impressive stuff. The 2 seed in the region is going to be the UConn Huskies. The 3 seed will be the Michigan State Spartans. Duke fans are already pointing out the fact that you just can't have March Madness without Duke and Michigan State crossing paths, which is so true.
That's right.
And then the 4 seed is Kansas, 5 seed is St. John's. I mean, it is heavy hitters, Hall of Fame pedigree coaches too.
You're not kidding. When you look at the East region and you look at just the names of the coaches who are in that East region, when we talk about, first of all, I'm going to talk about him, John Shire.
Yes.
My goodness, what he has done, historic what he has done in his first 4 years. We've got to talk about him among the best of the best currently coaching. But then you go on from him and you've got Rick Pitino, literally a peer and colleague of Coach K.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's been doing it a long time.
Yep.
Very successful. You got Bill Self, Tom Izzo. You're coming in with the other Hurley brother, who's not my favorite brother, but man, he's been successful at UConn too. Dan Hurley. I mean, 5 outstanding coaches who know what it takes to win in March and into April. I tell you what, you've got to beat every single team if you want to be the champion. But whoo, does Duke have a road?
Yeah, no kidding. And fortunately, it's not set up like you got to go one by one through every single one of these teams.
Thank goodness.
Fortunately, the way the bracket works, the 2-3 matchup would mean UConn and Michigan State have got to take care of one another essentially before Duke would play. But, we'll see how all of that unfolds. Those coaches that we just named, every single one of them have won a national championship except John Shire as a head coach.
But
this is the year to change that.
This is the year to change that. But I will say this, because I'm going to stand up for my guy.
Yeah.
And Coach Shire's my guy. He may not have been the head coach on a national championship team, but he was an assistant coach on a national championship team. And you know what, JJ? He was a player on a national championship team. My guy knows what it takes.
Yeah, he knows what it takes to win in March, and I think he's going to be able to do that as well. But, thinking back to UConn winning a few titles recently. Tom Izzo won his title at the turn of the century there with Michigan State. Bill Self has won a pair. Rick Pitino won one in 96 at Kentucky. His 2013 and one in Louisville. He won. They vacated it since, but we watched it play out. We know how history works. It happened. So a multi-time champion there. It's going to be a difficult test for Duke nonetheless. But then just circling back to the perspective of it all, Dad, like we said, the starting 5 from last year's team drafted into the NBA. This group has to come together. They're battling through injuries lately. Fortunately, there were no real injuries throughout the course of the year.
Season.
And it was a team that really didn't have the largest number of available players when they made the early decision to redshirt Sebastian Wilkins, going from 10 down to 9. And so you look at just the complete picture of the season. The one thing we haven't mentioned yet, in addition to Shire's coaching greatness and kind of putting in perspective, earning the number 1 overall seed, Dad, the ACC is better than it was
Absolutely.
last year.
Absolutely. The ACC is better. The non-conference schedule was more difficult. There was talk out there about, can Duke win a close game? And we had seen those games that were just heartbreakers. Yeah. And this year they're showing they can win the close game. They can play a tougher schedule against a tougher ACC conference and actually have a better resume today than they did a year ago. And that just feels impossible to say.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 starters went to the NBA. But then Coach Shire did something, and the coaching staff did something that was absolutely remarkable and doesn't happen in 2026. He doubled down on the guys on his bench. He said, you know what? We're going to bring in some all-stars, and thank goodness they did. The Boozer twins, absolutely amazing. Herminia has been absolutely amazing. Dame Sarr, absolutely amazing. So we're glad we've got those freshmen who came in. But we were carried in many ways by Pat Gamba, by Caleb Foster, by Malik Brown. And then how about Showtime Slim?
Yes.
Huh?
Isaiah Evans, that's right.
What a great season this has been. And you know what, JJ? I think the best is yet to come.
Yeah, no, I hope so. I mean, sights have been on 6 since 2015. We want to win the 6th national championship game. And Dad, like you and I have said, we've watched many a basketball games together in my lifetime. You're the reason why we've had you on the show before, and the reason why I'm such a big Duke fan and love the opportunity to talk about this. I mean, this is a team that really, it feels good that there's a good chance this could be a national championship season. Here's perspective for people to think about. Duke can only lose one more game this season.
Wow.
No matter what, they can only lose one more game this season. I hope they don't lose any.
There you go.
But if they were to drop one, they would finish this entire basketball season with only 3 losses, 1 fewer than that team we're talking about from a year ago.
Well, and that's just amazing to think about. And I think it points to the growth of Coach Shire, who they talk about their team motto, Kaizen, right? Like we're going to be better. We're going to be here in those moments. We're going to be present. We've heard Coach Shire talk in his press conferences about he has his team talking more in the timeouts. And we've seen the video of of Isaiah Evans drawing up plays on the whiteboard before the coaches come in. And so we're seeing growth of the coach. We're seeing incredible success and a better success than we've seen in the past. Man, I'm excited about the program today. I'm excited about what's going to happen over the next few weeks, but I'm really excited about the future of Duke basketball. Holy cow.
Yeah.
When we talk about succession, Coach K knew what he was doing,
Yeah,
didn't he?
they nailed it for sure. The blueprint was well executed. No other coach in the ACC's history has won 3 conference tournament titles in their first 4 seasons. John Shire has. That's a big reason why Duke was the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Do you want to pick a 5-12 upset, or do you want to pick a number 1 seed? Doesn't really matter. Whatever fits your mood, you can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you apply the profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. Purdue had a great Sunday with a win in the Big Ten championship game that secured a 2 seed for the preseason number 1 team in the country. With 1 trophy in hand, Nick Garvin recaps the win and looks to the tourney on Locked On Boilermakers.
Purdue beats Michigan. What a win it was. And it was a win largely when we talked yesterday about the 2 seed, that Purdue, there's a lot of conversation. Could they get there? Could they not? As we sat yesterday before the Michigan game, Purdue sat right on that 3-2 line on the outs behind a team in Michigan State. And I know all the conversation surrounding that Big Ten tournament title game. It's been there forever. Where does that game really account? Does that game really make an impact on the overall seeding come the Selection Sunday show that happens right after that Big Ten title game on CBS? The large consensus was no going into that game, that it wouldn't have much of an effect on would Purdue get that 3 seed, would Purdue get that 2 seed, and even Matt Painter said it after a victory against UCLA going into that finals matchup, that they were pretty well locked into a 3 seed, that it may be the difference between going to Greenville or going to St. Louis if Purdue were to beat Michigan. But Matt Painter was wrong for once, and I'm not trying to claim that I know more than Matt Painter, but I did sit on here yesterday. We took a look at the metrics considering Purdue, Michigan State, Illinois. Those were the 3 teams fighting for that final 2 seed, and I said, I actually think that Purdue does have the metrics over Michigan State here. Now, the head-to-head was what was keeping Michigan State ahead of Purdue, but with a win over Michigan in the Big Ten title game, I just saw no way that Purdue was going to be able to be kept out of that final 2 seed. And looky what happens. The Purdue Boilermakers win 80-72. They're the Big Ten champions, and they get that 2 seed. So let's take a look at how this game went down, because it was one of the best games Purdue has played all season long. I know we've said that a lot lately throughout this Big Ten tournament run, where the Purdue Boilermakers win 4 straight games in 4 days, which that's the first time that's happened since 1910 or something crazy like that. It was improbable. It wasn't supposed to happen, but yet here we are. The Purdue Boilermakers are Big Ten champions. And the reason it happened was largely because of the front court against Michigan. And for a Wolverines team that all that's talked about is the physicality of this front court, how physical the defense is, that Dusty May can throw anything at any team in the nation and they're going to have success. Well, they weren't able to do that against Purdue, because Oscar Clough, Trey Kaufman-Wren in the front court yesterday, even getting into some early foul trouble, they looked like the best players on the court, and they largely were the best players on the court yesterday. Oscar Clough had a career day, 21 points for the guy, 5 rebounds. Then Trey Kaufman-Wren, his other front court mate, had 20 points in this game. They combined for 40 points. That's how you get it done against the Wolverines, and that's how Purdue has gotten it done throughout the course of this Big Ten tournament. I can't express enough how happy I am, how excited I am that this team was able to flip the switch the way that they were able to throughout the course of this Big Ten tournament. Now, the Michigan game is one that deserves to be talked about because we saw this team earlier in the season and we fell to them. Michigan has been that number one seed throughout the course of the year. And the fact that going into March Madness, Purdue has that not just a momentum win, but they have that win under their belt where they can say, we beaten the best of the best. So who's going to beat us and why can't we be the best of the best? Because Purdue certainly looked better than Michigan yesterday. They played better than Michigan yesterday. They sure didn't turn the ball over, which is something we have been asking for this team to do forever. They only turned the ball over 2 times. Michigan turned it over 7 times, but Purdue able to capitalize off those turnovers. The margin there was 13 points for Purdue compared to Michigan's 2 points off turnovers. We talked about the front court, but how about Braden Smith in this game, who is now just 1 assist behind that record, tying that record, rather. That'll happen against Queens in that first round matchup in March Madness. Braden Smith was a man on the mission, especially after tearing his jersey to start out this game. He wasn't wearing number 3. He was wearing number 41. I look away from the TV for a second, look back at it, and I'm just saying, who is this number 41 out there, and why is he able to play make at such a high level? Didn't know who we were able to get off the bench, but I noticed it was Braden Smith. He had a great day as well. All the starters really showed up in this game. There wasn't a player outside of maybe a Daniel Jacobson who didn't play well. Jacobson is a conversation for another day, but he had to get thrown in there when Oscar Clough and Trey Kaufman-Renn got into foul trouble at one point. But CJ has 4 points, played good defense on Michigan's backcourt. You got Fletch, who made some big shots down the line, down the stretch of that game. 14 points for him. Braden had 14 and 11 assists, a double-double for Braden Smith. All the starters played well. Purdue as a whole played well. It was a good coach game by Matt Painter. And how about this team having legs under them? That was something I was a little bit concerned about going into this one, is against a Michigan team that's only played 3 days compared to a Purdue that's played 4 days. Would the Boilermakers have the legs under them to compete with a physical team like Michigan? Well, they were absolutely able to do that. They win the Big Ten title, and I couldn't be more excited for the way that this season has gone. All the ups and downs, going 500 through the backstretch of Big Ten play, and then getting into the Big Ten tournament. These seniors putting it on their shoulders, saying, we're going to take over this tournament. We're able to flip a switch. Everything is still in front of us. And then not just saying that, but living up to it. I'm so excited about the way that this tournament played out, but it's not over for Purdue. They're the Big Ten champions, still have an opportunity to maybe, just maybe, win their first ever national championship. Everything's still in front of this team right now. And 4-0, as we've said every episode since the Big Ten tournament started, it's not about the regular season. It's not about how that played out. It's about these tournament games. Purdue was 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, now 4-0. That's all that matters.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Do you want to pick a 5-12 upset, or do you want to pick a number 1 seed? Doesn't really matter. Whatever fits your mood. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you apply the profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. Some NC State fans had hopes of getting as high as a 9 seed in the NCAA tournament, but instead the Wolfpack fell all the way to the first 4 games in Dayton and will play Texas Tuesday night. Grayson Boone and Kenton Gibbs aren't happy about it on Locked On Wolfpack.
The brackets are out.
and NC State got hosed. What else is new? Water is wet. The sky is blue. NC State has yet again been snubbed to a certain extent by the NCAA. The men's team has received an 11 seed, but not just an 11 seed. They're headed to Dayton. They will be in the 11 seed play-in game to decide if they are inside of March Madness come Thursday. They will have a rematch, put a pin in that for just a second, with the Texas Longhorns, who we've already seen this season. That was way back in November, the end of November, Feast Week over in Maui, an 11 seed. And many of us thought coming into Selection Sunday that, this might be the first time in a while that NC State feels somewhat safely in the field. We were expecting anywhere from as high as like a 9 seed. That felt high to me, but I saw projections of a 9 seed. Maybe a 10 seed felt the most likely, and in some cases, an 11 seed. Nobody really thought, outside of a couple outside chances, that we'd end up in Dayton. And yet here we are, defying the metrics, defying the resumes, defying everything that they use to determine who goes what and plays where. NC State is now banished to Dayton, and they're going to have to play their way in to March Madness.
Grayson, have you ever been to Dayton, Ohio?
I have not.
Have you ever been to the state of Ohio?
Unfortunately, I have, yes.
Yeah, see, I'm glad you used that word. Unfortunately, I've never met anybody who wants to be in Ohio. I've never met anybody who's like, you know what I really could use right now? A trip to Columbus, a trip to Dayton. Man, I'll tell you, Cleveland is great this time of year. I've never heard that phrase once in my life.
Hey, shout out Joakim Noah.
Shout out Joakim Noah. Shout out Joakim Noah, because I've never heard that once in my life. And who's covering this game, Grayson?
Would you believe Dick Vitale and Charles Barkley will be on the call?
The way that Charles Barkley feels about the people of San Antonio.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
That's how I feel about them wide old backs in Ohio. You know what? We ain't got to get into that. But I'll say this. It's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate to see our team get treated in this way. And part of me is like, you know what? This is why Will Wade is our coach. And this is why I love the guy, because he's like, his first response was, there are no victims here. We did it to ourselves. And that's, I love a coach that's going to say that. And I love a coach that's going to say, I'm going to control what I can control. But Grayson and I are not in that locker room. We don't put together any of the drills. We don't put together any of that. So we can talk about this. And the objective truth of every metric said, hey, you are supposed to be here. Somehow, even though the committee said we don't take into account who's playing well and who gets hot at the end of the year, even though that was said to be the case, somehow we end up in Dayton with another team that's floundered and flopped and messed around at the end of the year in Texas. This is a disappointing result. This is disappointing to see that we're going here, but it just is what it is at this point.
And like I said, talking about some of those metrics that are supposed to be determining who gets what seed, who plays where, and what region you'd fall into, one of the biggest discrepancies I found was still in our same region. The 10 seed in this region is Missouri. Now, they're going to play the 7 seed in Miami, so technically speaking, if we were supposed to be the 10 seed, they're going to try and avoid that matchup between us and Miami. Again, put another pin in that for just a second. But Missouri, when you're looking at the predictive metrics here, Missouri is 58 in the net. They have 5 quad 1 wins, and quad 1 and quad 2 combined, they have 9 wins there. NC State is 36 in the net. That is 22 spots better. They have 5 quad 1 wins, the same amount, and we have 11 quad 1 and quad 2 victories. That's 2 more than Missouri. How is it that Missouri is 10 and we are 11? Now, maybe Missouri has better wins on the resume. I believe that to be true. However, if the NCAA committee is using the net to determine these seeds, it seems like they didn't use the net to determine these seeds. So if you're going to use it, then use it. If you're not going to use it, then say that. It feels like they have completely failed, or maybe it was just negligence in deciding these seeds here, because NC State did get screwed. Now, I'm glad you mentioned what Will Wade said, because Will Wade obviously was asked about this in the seed that we got. He said, there's no victim here. This is what we got. We essentially played our way into this. And in fact, he mentioned this way back in February, that he was so disappointed with some of the play that we put on the court.
He said, quote, "We'd be lucky to end up in Dayton at this rate," unquote. Wade does have quite the knack of speaking things into existence because now here we are. Now, like I said, NC State is getting screwed in the seeding, but at the same time, there was a very easy way to avoid all this. You could have beat Georgia Tech. You could have beat Miami. You could have beat Kansas. You could have beat either Seton Hall and or Texas in Maui. You could have beat Notre Dame on the road. You could have beat Stanford at home. How many opportunities could you need to get it right and avoid putting yourself in this situation? There were so many. And so, yes, there is one school of thought where NC State kind of got hosed here because, well, they did. And the other side of the track is, yes, we did play our way into this. We did lose 7 of the last 9 games we played, including the ACC tournament. This is what you get when you FA and you FO. We warned so many times about this and the must-win games coming down the stretch, only to drop them left and right. Unfortunately, when you do that so often, you don't really have a great resume to fall back on. You put yourselves in dangerous situations. Now, something else is interesting about this is we said that the first round game in the ACC tournament against Pitt was a must-win. So now I'm wondering, if we win that game and you're still a play-in seed, were we out altogether if we lost to Pitt? I don't know. It certainly seems like that is being implied here. That might have been an even bigger issue. Glad we're not dealing with that, but still, it's a tough draw, but it's not exactly undeserved. NC State has very much put themselves in this spot.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you are looking at a situation where we are not the top dogs in this game. We are not competing for a 1 seed, 2 seed, and it's like, oh, we should have got the 1 seed line because we're talking about a 10 versus an 11.
Yeah.
It just is what it is, you know. If you're wearing the red and white NC State, you have to know if you leave it in the hands of a committee, you're never going to end up where you want to be. If you leave a resume that is pretty good, that is so-so, that is it's above average, you know where you're going to end up every time if you're NC State. And so, you know, knowing that, playing how we played, playing with the lack of effort, playing with the things that we dealt with, you played with fire, and you found out that the stove was hot. Oh, NC State got screwed by an NCAA committee? Fork found in kitchen, everybody.
Now I'm going to pull a pin back out of that Texas bullet point that I gave you. Another stipulation in how they create the brackets and the seeding, they want to avoid rematches in the first round, meaning that if we played this team anytime in the regular season, they're going to try and not set you up to play that team again. Well, we did play Texas, and we're being slotted to play them again here. The other 2 11 seeds that are in a play-in game are SMU. Obviously, we played them, and we beat them. And Miami of Ohio. Now, Miami of Ohio is a very interesting case because they were undefeated up until they lost in their conference tournament. Now, the committee came out and said that Miami of Ohio was ahead of NC State, Texas, and SMU inside of the seeding list. But then the official NCAA tournament seed list came out, and NC State is the top 11 seed on there. So either somebody has false information or they just don't care to get their facts straight because this is not adding up. If you wanted to avoid a potential rematch, NC State would play Miami of Ohio and Texas would play SMU. It was right there without much tinkering you had to do. And yet and still, we have to rematch with Texas, a team we've already seen. Now SMU has to play Miami of Ohio. And also the humane part of this gripe, I would much rather play Miami of Ohio than I would Texas. Miami of Ohio, I don't know how I feel about them in terms of their strength of a team, but I would want to find out. Now, we've played Texas. They put up 102 points on us. I feel a little uneasy if we're keeping it 100 here. So very concerning draw here for NC State, to Kenton's point. Not exactly unexpected because we have let the committee ultimately decide our fate. We had the power to change that. We didn't. And so now here we are. We waffled around. We lost 7 of our last 9 games. And now here we are. Just a very disappointing situation for NC State because you would like to look at the other matchups like, hey, if we get BYU in the first round, yeah, DeBonce's a lottery pick, but outside of that, I don't know. BYU's kind of average. You can't overlook Texas. You cannot overlook Texas. You have to win that one to play any more basketball. So, yeah, I would like to look at, man, if we beat BYU, we'd have to play Gonzaga or Kennesaw State. That's not that bad of a draw. Don't care right now. We got to beat Texas. And Texas is a tough matchup to face in the first 4. So, it's disappointing. It's definitely a hollow feeling here to end up in Dayton when we feel like we have the resume. Actually, we do have the resume to be out of Dayton, and yet here we are. You have to play your way in to March Madness tournament that we should already be inside.
The only good thing about this team ending up in Dayton is there will be absolutely no distractions. There will be nothing for them to be, there will be nothing to divert focus from basketball. And when I say nothing, I mean absolutely nothing. That's the only good thing about this team going to Dayton. That's all. That's it. That's the one silver lining. If you ain't locked in for this one, there was nothing that could ever get you locked in, because again, I've been to Dayton and there's nothing there. There's nothing. It's a place that nobody good should be. So let's get right, church, and let's go home.
That's all for today's Big 3 and 30 College. If you follow pro basketball or football, the Big 3 and 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and NFL going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 and 30 NBA or the Big 3 and 30 NFL wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 and 30 College.